started. Welcome back again for session number 3 of Simple Remedies. We've been having a lot of fun learning about charcoal and poultices, and like I said, today is going to be on hydrotherapy. Now there's only so many hydro treatments that I can fit into this time frame, and so yes, there are more than what I'm going to talk about, but some of these are good basic ones, and I'm going to share on how to actually do them at home, on your own, in your own showers. At New Start, we have shower stalls with 16 shower heads. Yep. So you just can't escape from that water, right? It gets you everywhere all at once, and we have a pressure hose that'll give like a water massage during the hot cycles and things. So, but just because you don't have that at home doesn't mean you can't do contrast showers in your regular shower as well. And I'm just going to be going through the treatments, but I'm first going to start with sharing a foundation of what hydrotherapy is, why it's useful, why would you want to torture yourself with the cold, what is it doing for you, all of that kind of thing. But before we get started, let's open with a word of prayer. Our precious Heavenly Father, Lord, we once again thank you so much for this beautiful day today and for your presence here with us. We invite you. We ask that you would just be with each one here and all the things that they're doing and learning, and even the new friendships they're building. And I just pray that this whole camp meeting will prevail in your spirit, and that you will continue to work through it, each one of the speakers, each one of the conversations, the things that we do and learn. And I pray right now as we talk about hydrotherapy that you would guide my words, and that you would help each one hear and understanding what is shared, and being able to implement these things in their own lives for their own health and wellness. And we thank you and ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So, disclaimer, of course, not a doctor or nurse, so I don't have all the answers to your questions, but I do my best. What is hydrotherapy? It's actually 2 Greek words, hydor, which is water, and therapia, healing. So literally water healing. And there's the definition of it. It's a therapeutic application of water in all its forms, that's liquid, steam, and ice, to maintain or restore health. Now, a lot of people think of using natural treatments and things like this for restoring health, but you don't think of using it to maintain your health. But it's just like eating a good diet, right? So you get sick, and you find out, oh, it's because you were eating a bad diet, so you change and you get your health back, and then what? Go back to what made you sick? Does that make sense? No, you maintain a good diet to maintain good health. You can also use hydrotherapy to maintain good health. And you'll understand how it's affecting you, your immune system, your blood circulation, and all of those things. So either maintain your health or restore your health. So why use water? Why go to the extra time and effort of heating up fomentation pads, which if you don't know what that is, you will by the end of this lecture. It's moist heat, basically. But heating up some fomentation pads when you could just plug in an electrical heating pad and have instant heat. What's the difference? And moisture, the water, exactly. Because water is up to 27 times more efficient at conducting temperature than just dry air. So for example, that goes for hot or cold. If you were to go into a restaurant and ask them to go into their big walk-in freezer and stay there for 5 minutes. Let's just say that freezer was 30 degrees. It's a whole lot colder than that, but let's just say, for the sake of story, this is 30 degrees and we're going to go in there and stay there for 5 minutes. It's cold, dry air. When we come out, it's not going to take us too long to warm up compared to if we dove into 30-degree water and we stayed there for 5 minutes. Number one, that water is going to feel a whole lot colder than that freezer did, even though they're both 30 degrees. And number two, it's going to take you a lot longer to warm up coming out of the water than it did coming out of the freezer. And the same goes for heat. You can sit in a sauna at 160, 180, 190 degrees and you don't burn. But you can't get in water that temperature, not even close to that. Anything over 120 degrees will start to scald the skin. And so that is why in New Start, when we do our treatments, we like to start with hydrotherapy because it warms up the tissues, it gets the blood flowing, and actually 10 minutes of hydro will accomplish what it will take 20 minutes of massage to do. And so if we do a hydro treatment first and then follow that with massage, we can go deeper faster and accomplish a lot more in a shorter period of time just by doing that water treatment, because that water is so effective in getting down and affecting the tissues. So this is a quote from the Modern Hydrotherapy for the Massage Therapist. Hydrotherapy can accomplish many of the same therapeutic goals as massage techniques do. Like massage, hydrotherapy can relieve discomfort and pain, stimulate the flow of blood and lymph, make connective tissue easier to stretch, and soothe many aches, pains, and injuries, warm tissues, and relax superficial muscles. So these treatments are not just a fluff and buff. It's not just a feel-good thing for 1 hour, and that's all. It's doing a lot in your body, and it's therapeutic. And at my job, we call it spa therapy, not just spa. And that's because of that therapeutic aspect, is doing things inside your body, even long after the treatment is over. And so it's very effective. Now here you can see 3 arteries. In the center is a normal artery. In the middle of that is the blood flow, and there's a muscle wall around there, okay? So what happens when you put a foot or whole body or any part of your body in hot water, it causes vasodilation, and that's here on the left, and that dilates the artery. It causes that muscle wall to open up that artery, and that is increasing the blood flow. So the blood is being drawn to the area of where the heat is being applied, and it's the blood that's carrying the oxygen, the nutrients, the white blood cells, all those things that your body and your tissues need for healing, for repairing, for health, and all those good things. What happens when you apply cold anywhere to the body? That causes vasoconstriction, and that muscle wall constricts. It kind of reacts like you do in the cold, right? Woo! And it tightens up. And what is happening is you can see a big difference of blood flow between the dilated and the constricted. What's happening in the cold as the blood vessels are constricting is that the blood is being then pushed away from the surface of the skin where the cold is applied, and as it's being pushed away by those that constriction, it's flushing away toxins and waste matter. And so what happens when you combine those two and do contrast treatments, go back and forth, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, which is a lot of what hydro is, not every treatment, but a lot of it. You're bringing the fresh blood to an area, you're bringing all those nutrients and oxygen and good things, and then you're flushing out the toxins and the waste matter, getting that out of there, and then you're bringing the fresh blood back and pushing it away and flushing and bringing it back and flushing it out. And so one thing that is affecting, obviously, is the circulation of the blood. You're increasing blood flow. And what is required for perfect health? Perfect health requires perfect circulation, right? So what are the physiological effects of contrast treatments? So, like I said, it greatly increases the circulation of the blood, which then promotes healing. Good circulation, good health. It also causes a reflexive stimulation of related tissues and organs. So in other words, when you're doing hot and cold to one area, it's affecting somewhere else that you're not applying the hot and cold to. For example, if you do a contrast foot bath, you're doing hot and cold just to your feet, that is stimulating your abdominal organs, your respiratory system, and your brain. If you do hot and cold to your hands, that stimulates your respiratory system and your brain. So a lot of times people have noticed if they have a migraine or a headache and they wash dishes and they've got their hands in the hot water washing, and then they might have hands in the cold water and they're back and forth a little bit, they start noticing that their headache is decreasing. They're doing a little hydro treatment just by washing dishes and don't realize how the effect it's having. If you do hot and cold to the chest, it will stimulate the kidneys, and so on and so forth. So you can use this to your advantage in different ways. For example, if you have a broken arm or leg and it's in a cast, and you can't get it wet, right? But it would be good to increase the circulation to that broken extremity to help speed the healing time. What you can do is do hot and cold to the opposite side, and that will increase the blood flow on the broken side by up to 25%. And so just remember that when you're doing hot and cold one place, it's affecting somewhere else, okay? Contrast also decreases musculoskeletal pain. We see that a lot. Even just giving a contrast fomentation treatment to someone's back, if they're having a lot of back pain, just after that, and they haven't even done a massage yet, they're already saying how that their pain has gone or greatly decreased just by doing that. It also gives a strong feeling of invigoration. How many of you do contrast showers? All right, do you feel a little more invigorated after that than when you stepped in that shower?
Yep.
Yeah. What some people call a contrast shower the Adventist cup of coffee, because it just wakes you up and gets you going in the morning. Who needs their coffee? Just take a contrast shower, and that'll get you going. It does. It invigorates you. Personally, I find contrast showers or contrast immersion baths, these kinds of things, a unique combination of very invigorating and very relaxing. It's a very good feeling that you have, and you only know that by experiencing it. All right. So rules for all contrast treatments. Now this goes whether it's a shower or immersion or foot bath or foamies, any of those. If you're doing a contrast treatment where you're going between hot and cold, and I'm going to be explaining all of these, if that doesn't make sense to you yet, I'll be explaining them. And a lot of this information is on your handouts, so if you don't have a handout, raise your hand and someone will get one to you. So 3 to 5 minutes of hot and 30 to 60 seconds of cold equals 1 cycle. Okay? And you want to do a minimum of 3 cycles, so hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, and a maximum of 6. Now it's not that you can't go over 6, you can, but the point for that is 2 things. 1, if you remember those blood vessels that were dilating and contracting, right? Dilating and contracting back and forth, pretty soon after 6 cycles, those muscles start getting fatigued. They're getting tired, and so you get a weaker reaction. When you're going 7, 8, 9 cycles, because they're just like, okay, how many more times are we going to do this? Kind of like you working out at the gym, right? Your muscles get tired. So if you're going to go beyond that, then you need to make the hot hotter and or the cold colder to stimulate those fatigued muscles into giving a good reaction. And the other reason is because if you're doing it for your immune system, to boost your immune system, because contrast increases white blood cell count, they have done testing where they took the blood, drew the blood at each cycle of hot and cold to see what happened with the white blood cells. And they found that during the first 6 cycles, those white blood cells kept increasing. But at the 6th cycle and beyond that, they just plateaued. They stopped increasing. And so that is the, up to 6 is the maximum benefit for as far as your immune system.
Talking about white blood cells. So if you go get a blood test from your doctor and say that your white blood cell count is high, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
To do contrast, if your white blood cell count is high already,
Yeah, because I went to go get a blood test one day from my doctor's office, and my white blood cell count came out fine. Didn't say abnormal, it just said high.
on the high end of normal.
That means you have a good answer because I've been doing it.
Well, you would want that answer from your doctor. But the increase of white blood cells that you get from contrast treatments it's a temporary increase. It doesn't stay increased. And so that is something that it wouldn't cause a chronic increase of white blood cells. Yes. All right, you want to do a minimum, okay, minimum and maximum. You always end with cold. This is what people rebel at. We're getting it all the time. Our clients will ask us, I already did 2 cold. Can't we just end with hot for the last one? And we always tell them no, because we love them. We want them to get the best from those treatments. Now, but it helps to understand why. Why do we end with cold? And that is because it's important to close the pores. We're wanting to close those up. If you're ending with hot, and hot water opens up the pores, and it's warming up your blood as well. And when you end with hot and open pores, when you get out of the shower, pretty soon, well, not pretty soon, when you get out, that heat in your blood starts radiating out your open pores, and pretty soon afterwards, you can start to chill. When you end with cold, it closes your pores. And so what's happening during the cold, the blood's being pushed away from the surface, it's being chased away. Well, when you get out of the cold and you start drying off, the body's response is to rush the blood back to the surface to warm up those chilled tissues. And so because your pores are closed, it then holds in all that heat from your nice warm blood, and you don't chill afterwards. And so that's why we end with cold. Same thing it does, ladies, and just a freebie here is to end with cold on your hair. In the shower, you'll have softer, smoother hair because the heat opens up the hair shafts and the cold closes them down. And I've had hairdressers agree with that as well. So you want to always end with cold, always close up those pores. For diabetics, we don't want to exceed 102 to 104. For their hot. Now hot is between 102 and 110. This is on your handout. That range, 102 to 110. So we're staying at the low end of hot. And you always want to do hot carefully with diabetics because they may have a mild, moderate, or severe level of neuropathy or lack of sensation. They cannot accurately give you feedback as to how hot is too hot. And so you just need to make sure that you know what that temperature is. And so you need to have a thermometer for your hydro. I tell New Start, patients to move their thermometers from the kitchen. They don't need it for their food anymore because they're not going to be eating meat anymore, right? Move it from your kitchen to your bathroom and use it for hydro. But you want to be checking and testing your temperatures. And so 102 to 104 is a safe range. If someone is super sensitive, they might not even be able to take 102. So you might have to do 100 for them. But generally 102 to 104, the point is you don't want to exceed that for diabetics. And for anyone with neuropathy, if they're not diabetic and they have neuropathy for some other reason, then you need to be careful with that temperature. The cold, it doesn't matter. It's the hot you have to watch out for. So you need at least 20 degrees difference, Fahrenheit, between the hot and the cold to get a good response. Now, I always say though, start with what you can tolerate, because not everyone can tolerate 20 degrees difference. And especially if you are sharing this with someone, let them know that, because some people are, the more the better. So extreme hot and extreme cold, and if they can't tolerate that, then they're just not going to do it at all. Well, what good is that going to do them, right? Or some other people have never done cold and they're not used to it. And I'll just share a little story about this. I had a New Start client who she would not let me get her into a contrast shower the whole time she was there. And I kept telling her, I'll only take you to your tolerance. I won't push you beyond that. Yes, we push beyond comfort zone, but we don't push beyond tolerance. And because we want them to want to do it again. That's the whole point. If you give someone one contrast shower and it was so horrible they never want to do it again, what have you accomplished? Nothing. They got one contrast shower in their life. Okay. You want them to continue doing it. So she was saying, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. And one day she finally told me why. As I was doing, I think, a paraffin treatment on her feet, she started sharing how that she was traveling with a friend. And her friend always ended her showers every day with cold. She'd been doing that for a long time. She loved it. And so while this lady was in the shower in the morning, her friend told her, oh, when you're finished with your shower, go down to cold. You'll love it. And she's like, really? Oh, yeah, you'll love it. It feels so good. And so she was like, well, okay, I'll try it. And so when she was finished, she went down to pure cold, and she said that was so miserable. She would never do that again. And that's why she would not let me get her in that contrast shower, no matter all my promises not to push her past what she could tolerate. And so that's what you want to avoid. So always let people know, start with what you can tolerate. This is a goal. Some people can start with 30 or 40 degrees, and then they just love it. You know, you don't have to worry about those people. But it is those that are not used to it, that can't. And the more you do it, the more the body adapts to it, and the more you work towards that 20 degrees difference, and maybe even beyond. Because once you start getting used to it, you miss it when you don't do it. Does anyone testify to that? It's something that is amazing. I always end my showers every day with cold. I take a regular hot shower and end with cold. And if I get sick or something, then I'll do the cycles of hot and cold for the contrast to boost my immune system. Well, this one day I was doing my shower and I was really thinking about something. I don't remember what it was, but my mind was occupied. And I turned the water off and I got out and I stopped and I'm like, I feel different. I don't usually feel like this when I get out of the shower. I'm like, wait a minute, did I end with cold? And I looked at the faucet and I had not ended with cold because my mind was distracted, so I forgot to do it. But it made such a difference in how I felt that how I felt distracted my distracted thinking and said, wait a minute, why do I feel like this? So your body does acclimate to it, you get used to it. And when you don't do it, you miss it. You want to keep warm after a treatment? Rest and drink water. We always tell clients to rest 30 to 60 minutes after a hydro massage treatment. Now, if you're doing a contrast shower in the morning to get ready for the day and go to work, no, you don't need to take your shower and then go rest for 30 minutes. That's not what I'm meaning. But if you're doing it for a therapeutic treatment, if you're sick or something and all of that, you need that rest afterwards because it's giving the body reaction time. And even though you're out of the treatment, there's still, whatever treatment it is, there's still a lot going on inside the body. And to do that rest afterwards helps you hold the effects longer and better than if you just get up and go. All right, and drinking water, you just want to stay well hydrated, always. You know, we all know the importance of drinking water, right? I'm not going to go into that more. So contrast shower or a contrast bath. You can do the contrast bath in different ways. You can have, if you have a hot tub or a jacuzzi, then you can get a watering trough for animals, the size that you can fit into, and just fill it with the water from your garden hose. That's cold water. And there you can get out of your hot tub, get down to the watering trough, and go back and forth that way. Or get 2 watering troughs. Some people will do that, put it out on their back deck, and rig up some hot water to it, and do it that way. I had one lady who, she came through New Start, and she was there for depression, pretty severe depression. And so we were doing contrast baths for her, where you're fully immersed in the hot, and you get out and you fully immerse in the cold. And she was like trying to figure out how she could do this at home. She liked her hot at 110 and her cold at like 50. So it was extreme, and she loved it. And she was feeling the benefits from it. And it's natural, actually, I'll put this in, Dr. Nedley, that's what he does for his depression and anxiety recovery program, is twice a day, everyone that goes through that program, twice a day, does a contrast immersion bath. And they've got ice floating in their water. It's down in the 50s, it's cold. But it's because it's a natural form of shock therapy without any of the negative side effects. And it wakes up the frontal lobe, which is what shuts down in depression. So it's very good for those things. But she came one day and I was giving her treatment, and she's like, I figured out what I'm going to do. I've got a hot tub, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of those big trash barrels, the trash can things, and I'm going to fill it with cold water, and I'm going to have my husband help me. I'll get out of the hot tub, and he's going to help me get down into that trash can, and then get me out of there and get back into the hot tub. I've since learned about, getting a watering trough. That might be a whole lot easier than a trash can. But she was determined. And so, you can get out of a hot tub and just spray yourself down with the hose, or you can go between a hot tub and a swimming pool, whatever, that kind of thing. But you can do contrast baths in those improvised ways. if you don't have two tanks side by side. But contrast showers or baths, oh, sorry, yes.
I was going to mention, you already mentioned, some of the places have air that are warm,
Mhm.
and then we can get out and go into the regular pools.
Yeah, and that's your contrast.
It's not as contrasting, but
It's still getting it. And it's probably at least 20 degrees, so it has a good effect on the body in going from the warmer pool to the cooler pool. Yes.
So April, bathrooms that have tubs in the shower, a person can take a hot tub bath
Mhm.
and then into a cold
And
shower.
jump into a cold shower.
They don't have to
Yep.
do all that other stuff.
Yep, can do that too. Yeah. All right, so these increase your blood circulation, as we mentioned. Also your immune system, increasing your lymphatic circulation, which that's a part of your immune system as well. It increases your white blood cell count and your metabolism. So if you're wanting to lose weight, you can help increase your metabolism by doing contrast. And it has the potential to increase your self-control. Why do you think that is? You gotta make yourself do it, right? Most people don't enjoy cold. I would say with what comes through New Start, probably 98% of people do not enjoy cold. A few do. They're usually from the more colder countries or states and things like that, and it just feels really good to them. But most people, they're glaring at us when we're giving them these cold cycles. But when you're at home, you have to do it and make yourself do it. And that can be hard, and it takes discipline. It takes self-control to make yourself do something you don't like. I have a friend who a coworker, she hates cold. And she heard me give this lecture a few times, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna try doing it in my shower with cold every day. And she did that for 2 or 3 weeks, and she came back and told me how that she started noticing that she was having better discipline in other areas of her life because she was making herself do the cold in the shower. Yeah, you can build your character in the shower. All right? Get that fruit of the spirit going. All right, so contrast shower do's and don'ts. You do want to turn around. You just have that one shower head, most people at home, so turn around, get all sides. You want to raise your arms in the hot and the cold because there's a lot of lymph nodes under there. And you want to hit those. You got them in your neck, you got them under there, you got them in your groin. So hit those lymph node areas. What do people do? Right? They slam those arms down. But the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and pretty soon it just doesn't bother you anymore. That's how it has been for me. At first it was like, oh, this is just uncomfortable. But now it's like part of my routine, and I don't even think about it. So raise the arms, do in with cold, as I explained. You don't want to do what I just said. Hold your breath and tense your muscles when you're going to cold. And that's because two things. When you do that, one, it makes the cold feel colder to actually tense against it. And secondly, when you're tensing your muscles, you are constricting that around the blood vessels, and the blood can't flow as freely. And so it can't flush out those toxins and waste matter as well. And so you're just wanting to keep those blood vessels, keep your muscles relaxed so that your blood flow as it needs to, and you'll get a better response from it, from that treatment. And so we tell our clients, instead of holding your breath and tensing your muscles, to take slow, deep breaths. Because when you're breathing deeply, it's harder to tense your muscles. And that too, as you do it, it will become routine to you. I remember one time in the shower, you can tell I do this at home, okay? I practice what I preach. I was practicing this and always making myself breathe, and I tell myself, here comes the cold. I say it out loud so I can hear it, it just helps me mentally. And here comes the cold, and I would start taking deep breaths. Well, this one day, again, shower's a good place for thinking. I was thinking about something, and I went down to cold, but I wasn't thinking about how, okay, I'm going down to cold now, start breathing. And when that cold hit me, my response was, I took a big deep breath, because that's what I was used to. I had trained my body to do that instead of kind of thing. So take slow, deep breaths. Keep your muscles relaxed. Don't end with hot, as I explained why. And it is not necessary to exceed 1 minute of cold. That 30 to 60 seconds is all you need for contrast treatments. Because when you start going beyond a minute of cold, it starts having an opposite effect. And so it's not necessary. Now there are treatments, there are cold treatments. You can do a cold plunge for reducing inflammation. Athletes will do cold plunges after an intense workout or an event kind of thing to reduce sore muscles. You can do a cold plunge after an automobile accident or something like that to decrease inflammation and soreness. And that's where, yes, you can sit in a tub of cold water for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever, and then get out, and that's a cold plunge. But that's not a contrast treatment, okay? That's different. So for contrast, you don't need to exceed 1 minute of cold. And I just always say that because some people are like, if 1 minute's good, 5 minutes is better, kind of thing. But it's not necessary for this. All right, before I go on to that, some people will wonder, well, how can I tell what the temperature is in my shower? Because at New Start, we have a little gauge, and we can see exactly where the temperature is, but you don't have that at home. Again, you've got your kitchen meat thermometer. You have it in your bathroom. It's not waterproof because it's not made for water. It's made for the kitchen. So you can just make it waterproof by zipping it in a bag like this, poke the probe through one of the corners, and take a cup into your shower, and you can test the temperature of the water, and a few times of doing that, and that you'll have a good idea of where you're at in general with your temperatures for that. And you're not going to have to do that every single shower you take, but you can do that until that gives you an idea of where you're at, and it's a good way to tell. If you don't need to be knowing what your temperatures are, you don't need to do that. One rule of thumb is that you can always tell if you've gone cold enough by how it feels to your face. Because the skin of your face and your hands is made, it's a little different, it's more hardy, so to speak. It's made to be exposed to the elements. That's what we have exposed. The rest of us is clothed, but our face and our hands are not, and unless it's extreme weather. And so what feels cold to your core might only feel cool to your face. And so when I learned that, then I decided, okay, it's got to be cold to my face. If it's not cold to my face, I haven't gone cold enough. So the first time I tried this, I got in the shower, and when it was time for cold, I turned it down to what I would usually do, and whoo, started breathing because it was on my core, and that was cold, and I put my face in there, like, oh, that's only cool. I gotta go down some more. So I went down until it was cold to my face. And then I knew it was cold enough. And so like I said, you know, work yourself down to that. You don't have to start the first time with going to pure cold. So those are just some different ways to gauge that in the shower. All right, so next one, cool down shower. This is not a treatment in and of itself. It's a way of ending a full body heat treatment. A sauna, a Russian steam bath, a hot bath, you know, those kinds of things, where the full body was in heat and it's sweating, and we need to get the sweat off for one thing, and we need to close the pores. So all it is you get up out of that full body heat treatment and you step into a warm shower and you get that sweat off, and then when you're ready, you go down to cold for 30 to 60 seconds, and that's your cool down shower. That's it. You get out, you dry off, you go rest, or you drink your water, whatever. That is a cool down shower. So there's two ways of ending these kinds of full body treatments: cool down shower or cold mitten friction. And I'm going to be talking about cold mitten friction later. So you'll hear me mention those two as we go through these treatments. All right, so here are two foot treatments: contrast foot bath and hot foot bath. So for the contrast foot bath, you can see you're going to need 2 containers of water. Just anything that will hold water. You can use dish pans, you can use trash cans, you can use these basins, you can use 5-gallon buckets, whatever will hold water. One of hot and one of cold, and you can do a contrast foot bath. You've got your hot from 102 to 110, Again, you need your thermometer to know where you're at with those temperatures, and most especially if you're giving these treatments to someone else. And I tend to speak in the way of giving these treatments because, of course, that's what we're always doing. But I want you to learn these not only for giving to yourself, but also for giving to other people and sharing with them. And so you want to be mindful of these things, that you need to know what the temperature is before someone puts their feet in the water. And your cold is from 55 to 70 Fahrenheit. And so you can, if your tap water doesn't come in cold enough, then add some ice to it. If it comes in too cold, then add some hot water to it. And you could just get it somewhere in that range. You are going to need to boil some water beforehand, because whatever you use, even if it's 5-gallon buckets, they are smaller containers and they will be losing the heat, and you'll be needing to add hot water to it to maintain the temperature throughout the treatment. Okay? So one thing you want to be mindful of is how and when to add that hot water. So you've got your timer going, and it's time for cold water. Say this is cold over here. So they put their feet over there. That's when it's the best time for you to grab your thermometer and the water that you boiled, and put that in there and stir that hot water in until it's back up to the right temperature while they've got their feet over in the cold water for that minute. I like to do it for a minute for them. Why not? Gets a better reaction. And so then when that water is ready, they just go back into it, and you have never poured boiling water into the container while their feet are in there. Does that make sense? So no chance of burning them. That is the absolute safest way to do it. That's the way I recommend to do it all the time. And and especially if they're diabetics, because if you burn the foot of a diabetic, it can literally become a life-threatening injury. So just super careful not to burn the feet with either one of these treatments. And so I will say right now, that's why I don't like that aspect of that picture over there on the hot foot bath. Please ignore that. I have a very hard time finding hydrotherapy type pictures. When you put that into Google, you get all these swimming pool therapy stuff to come up. It's hard to find these. And so that was the best one I found, but I don't like how they're adding the hot water. So in that case, I'll talk about how to do that when I get to that treatment. So you're simply in the contrast foot bath, maintaining the temperatures there, and you can even have some ice to be adding to the cold, because the more cycles they do, they're going to be warming up that cold water with their hot feet. And so you can throw in a bit of ice there in between each one, and you're going to do 3 to 6 cycles. And each one, 3 to 5 minutes hot, 30 to 60 seconds of cold, 3 to 6 times, ending with cold. Because this is a contrast treatment, so all those rules apply to it, right? And then when they're done with finish with the last cold, you're going to thoroughly dry the feet. You want to get in between the toes and everything, and most especially if they're going to be putting on socks and shoes, because you don't want a damp environment and encouraging fungal growth and all of that kind of thing. So thoroughly dry their feet. Let them know you're going to go between the toes. Be careful if they're ticklish or painful. But you just want to make sure that the feet are nicely dry. For a hot foot bath, that is something that you can do with or without the blanket. If you do it with the blanket, that turns it into a full body heat treatment. Okay, so then because of that, you're going to need to do some extra steps. If you do it without the blanket, then it's just simply applying heat to the feet by having them immersed in hot water. And you're definitely going to need to have some boiled water, because you do a hot foot bath for anywhere up to 20 minutes. So 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever, before they start getting relief. This is very good to use for headaches and migraines. I'm not talking about what each treatment is used for, because that is on your handout, and I have a lot to share in this amount of time. This could be a 3-hour lecture if I go into all of that. But that is on your handout, what to use each one of these for. But this is a main go-to for headaches and migraines. Also for menstrual cramps for women, because for any of those it helps draw the excess blood, either with the headache, the excess blood from the head down. It helps with chest congestion too, because of helping to draw the congestion down out of the chest. For menstrual cramps, drawing the excess blood from the abdomen and moving that. And so very good to do. If it's for the headaches, it's also good to have a basin of ice water and a washcloth or a hand towel and be having cold around the head while the feet are in hot water. And that is because it's helping to constrict, the cold is helping constrict the blood vessels in the head to push the blood out, the excess blood causing the headache. Now, if you feel like you're getting a migraine, like I mentioned the other day when someone asked about that, the sooner you could do a hot foot bath, the better. And there is a possibility that you might be able to even stop the migraine from progressing. But if a migraine has already gotten a hold, then a hot foot bath's not necessarily going to take it away, but it can help in reducing the severity of it. So it's still worth doing, but migraines are harder to get rid of than just headaches, okay? So just be mindful of that. So you're going to be adding hot water, so we're not doing contrast for a hot foot bath, so they're not putting their feet over into a cold basin, right? So how are you going to add the hot water? The best way to do that is have them just lift their feet out of the water while you add some and stir it in, and then they can test the temperature of it with the foot and see if that's okay. No, I wanted a little more. Okay, add a little bit more. Just do a little at a time. If I see your hand, if they want to keep their feet in there or a foot in there and tell you how much to add, and they're not diabetic, then you can have them scoot their foot over to a corner if the basin's large enough. This would not work in a 5-gallon bucket, but if it's something like this and they can scoot a foot over, and you put your hand in between their feet, their foot, and the water that you're pouring in, and you're stirring it as it comes in, that makes you pour very carefully, because if anyone gets burned, that's going to be you and not the person you're giving a treatment to, okay? So very important just to always take extra precautionary steps never to burn the feet.
Would you use the same temperatures for children?
Would you do the same temperatures for children? Yes, I would just keep it like maybe the hot on the lower 102 to 105 kind of range, and I would do the cold maybe in the 60s, 65, 70 in there, yes, because that's still more than 20 degrees, so you're going to get a good response with it. All right. So if you're doing it without the blanket, then at the end of the up to 20 minutes time, you will simply have them immerse their feet into some cold water, or you'll have a pitcher of cold water and they just lift their feet out and you pour that cold water over it and then dry their feet thoroughly, okay? If you're doing it with the blanket and turning it into a full body heat treatment, then you will not end it quite that way. You will need to end it either with a cool down shower, as we talked about, or cold mitten friction, because you've got to get all the sweat off of the body and you've got to close up all the pores. All right? And also, you can see a towel on the head. That's because whenever you do full body heat, you need to keep the head cool. It helps them to tolerate the treatment better, keeps them more comfortable, and when they're more comfortable, they can take it longer. And so that is having a basin of ice water with the hand towel and just keeping the head cold and giving them water to drink, because as they're sweating it out, they need to be drinking it back in, okay? And you have a straw for them, keeps it handy. They're all wrapped up. They can't use their arms, so you have to feed that water to them. Okay, does that make sense? So when their time is up, you're going to get them either up into a cool down shower or doing the cold mitten friction, okay? And drying off after that and going and resting. So the Russian steam bath. This is similar to the hot foot bath with the blanket that we just talked about, but it's more intense because you've got a source of steam underneath them, underneath the chair that they're sitting in. So they're then getting a steam bath. And steam is very intense. And this is great for detoxification. This is kind of like a home sauna that you can do. If you don't have a sauna at home, you can do a Russian steam bath home style like this and get a good sweat and a good detox. It's good for other things as well. It's boosting your immune system and things. So you're going to have a chair, not a metal chair, because that is going to burn the person that's sitting on it eventually. So you want to put the hot plate and the water fully under the chair. So I don't have a hot plate at the moment with me. I don't have that in my kit, but let's just say this is my hot plate. It's my little electrical burner that I'm going to plug in. That's my source of heat, and I'm going to have this water, this pot with some water in there, hot boiling water. All right, so that's going to go directly underneath the chair, and you're going to have a hot foot bath. So you've got that there for the person. You've got your water that you boiled, keeping that hot foot bath hot, and you've got a timer. And what they're going to do, or before they sit down, you are going to take a bath towel and fold it in half. So there's 2 layers, and you're going to set it. This keeps sliding off the chair, so I can't leave it there. But you're going to set it there, and they sit down on that, and that is to protect the back of their legs from getting burned from this steam that they're sitting over, okay? So then that way the steam is going to be coming out the sides and the back and not out the front to burn the back of their legs. So they sit on that. The more skin exposed, the better to the steam. So a swimsuit or shorts and a tank top, that kind of thing. They sit down there, they put their feet in the hot water that you've already tested the temperature. You know it's a safe temperature for them to put their feet in. And you're going to then take a large flat bed sheet, at least a queen size. It has to be that size or larger. And you're going to wrap that all the way around them from the neck to the floor with no air vents. And then around the sheet, you're then going to wrap a large wool blanket or a heavy blanket or a shower curtain or a piece of plastic, something to create a tent over them to hold in that steam. Okay, this is a steam bath. And if that steam is escaping, they're not being bathed with it. Okay, so you can go to the hardware store and get rolls of heavy plastic sheeting and then just cut off a piece and put a slit in the middle and put that over their head, and there's a cape all the way around them. All right. If you're doing it with a sheet and blanket, you'll want some pins of some kind to hold the seams together to, again, keep it sealed so that that steam is not escaping. So from the neck to the floor, around the hot foot bath and everything, and they're going to be in that steam bath for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, typically. 10 to 20 minutes is what most people do. You can go up to 30. But most people can tolerate, because like I said, it's intense. So they can tolerate 10 to 20. But tolerance is very individual. Okay, I had one client who I put her in a Russian steam bath, and after 4 minutes she said, okay, I'm done. And I almost kind of laughed. I thought she was joking because she just got in there. But she was serious. She was hot, she was done, she wanted out. Okay, so I got her out. I had another client at a different time who she just really wanted a good sweat and a detox. And so, can I just, don't worry about giving me massage, can I just do the Russian steam bath? And so, okay, we'll do that. And so I had her in there, and she was just loving it, and I was keeping cold to her head and giving her water to drink because it's a full body heat treatment. And you know, if their nose itches, you got to scratch it for them. You got to give them what they need. Sometimes I'll rub ice on the face because they just get really hot, and that feels good. But after 45 minutes, I said, okay, we need to get you out and get you in the shower. Your time is up. And oh, do I have to? This feels so good. So 4 minutes, 45 minutes, that's a huge variance of tolerance. But like I said, in general, 10 to 20 is what most people can tolerate well. And there are things, I will just mention this now, on your handouts, you have the different columns across. Under cautions, I'm not going over and talking about all the cautions either because I just don't have the time for that. But before you do or give any of these treatments, please read through that because that has things listed there. Not every treatment can you do for every person. There are things that you need to be aware of, and so that's why that's on there. Whether you need to not give a certain treatment for someone with such and such, or whether you just need to moderate the temperatures a bit for it. That is listed under the cautions, okay? So please be mindful and aware of that because water is not innocuous. You can do someone harm if you give them a treatment that when they have a particular condition that then makes that condition worse. So that is on there for your reference so that you can give these safely, wisely, and skillfully, okay? All right, so we're getting a Russian steam bath, we're feeding them water, we're keeping the foot bath hot, we're keeping cold to the head. This keeps you busy, right? Once they're done, they need to end with a cool down shower or cold mitten friction. Got the idea? I'm becoming a broken record with these. That's the two ways you end. So get that sweat off and then close up the pores and then they go rest and keep drinking water. All right, a hot bath.
What's considered advanced age?
Advanced stage.
Advanced age.
Oh, advanced age. I'll leave that to your discussion. A hot bath. This is something that you can have a lot of fun with. You can, because you can add things to it or not, but some different ideas are there, optional additives on your handouts that you can do for a hot bath. A charcoal bath, like I mentioned during the charcoal lecture, it's a great detox. But what was my disclaimer on that? Stains the bathtub, yeah. If it's a porous material, it'll stain your tub. And so just be mindful of that. You may not want to do a charcoal bath for that reason. And if not, there's another one on there, a cup each of Epsom salt, sea salt, and baking soda. That's another detox bath, and that's not going to stain your tub. And so you could do that one instead. There is Epsom salt bath, of course. Everyone is usually pretty familiar with that. It's a good relaxation bath because the Epsom salt is a magnesium sulfate, and that magnesium helps with relaxing the muscles because in the hot, it's your pores are opened up, so that magnesium's getting in and relaxing you. And it's also helping with drawing out toxins because it draws it out. It also draws out excess fluids. Epsom salt does. So you can do that. You can do an oatmeal bath. If you have skin problems, dermatitis, eczema, any kind of skin condition, oatmeal baths are very good because oats have chemical properties that are very healing to the skin. And so you can just grind up a cup of oats and throw that into the water and mix it in, grind it up nice and fine. You're not going to put the whole oat flakes in there. You don't want to be clogging up your pipes when you drain that water out, right? And you don't put more than a cup in because that too can start clogging up the pipes. So that's why it's no more than a cup of charcoal for the same reason, no more than a cup of oats. If you don't want the oats in the water, then you can put the oats in a muslin bag and hang it over the faucet and have it running, have the water filling the tub as it's running through the oats in that bag, and that will get the oat properties into the bath water without actually having it in the water with you. Doing an oat bath, it does leave a little bit of a film on the skin, the oats do, and so then, you know, that's up to you if you want to leave it on there, but most people will rinse it off somehow. But you want it on the skin for at least 20 minutes. And then you can rinse that off. What other do you have on there? Essential oils, you can put that in your baths as well. You can do bubble baths, you can just do whatever kind of bath you want, or just not put anything in there at all with your water. But it's going to be 10 to 30 minutes for a hot bath. And I will say one thing about doing any kind of bath, whether you have someone with you or not in the house, is always, 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 and this is especially for hot or warm baths, if you start feeling lightheaded or dizzy or anything and you're thinking, oh, I think I need to get out, I'm starting to feel a little woozy, the first thing you do before you even try to stand up to get out is open the drain. Okay? That's just always a safety measure for baths when you start feeling lightheaded, is to open the drain and then attempt to get out of the tub. And that way, if you do pass out while you're trying to get out, then the water's draining and you won't drown. Okay? So just always remember that. Pull the plug first and then get out of the tub. So this is, if you're going to be doing a hot bath just for 10 minutes, then you don't necessarily need to be keeping cold to the head. But if you're going to be doing it for longer than that, and you're really going to start sweating. And so you do need to have a basin of some ice water there, and that's going to feel very refreshing to get your hands in there and to get that on your head, and have some water there next to you to be drinking. Because like for any other full body heat treatment, as you're sweating it out, you want to be putting it back in, okay? So that goes for any of those treatments, the same thing. Keep the head cool, drink water. And so you're going to need to end with what? It's a full body heat treatment. Cold, yeah, cool down shower, cold mint and friction. All right. Neutral bath. Neutral bath is a chill pill. And that is because the temperature of the water is close to the body's own temperature. And so the nervous system recognizes that there is no threat, and it calms down. Because when you're in a hot bath, the nervous system is constantly working to keep you from getting overheated. When you're in a cold bath, the nervous system is working to keep you from getting chilled. But when you're in a neutral bath, and that water is between 94 and 98, that's a neutral temperature, then pretty soon the nervous system recognizes that, hey, there's no threat. This isn't making them hot, it's not making them cold. Well, I don't have anything to do. I can just relax. And so this is a very good treatment for depression, anxiety, for insomnia. If you're doing it for insomnia, do it right before going to bed. Take a neutral bath, get out, and go to bed. And that will help settle your whole nervous system down, and you can sleep better. The whole point of a neutral bath is nothing stimulating. Nothing stimulating. So one thing is, you have to keep the temperature of the water stable between that 94 to 98. Because if it starts dropping below 94, you're going to start losing the effects, because that's turning into a cool bath. And your nervous system is going to say, hey, things are getting a little cool. I got to keep you from, getting too cool. And so start going to work. So you have to have a thermometer with you to keep track of the temperature of your water. And if you need to add some hot water in to bring that back up, then you want to just very gently stir it in. Don't, nothing stimulating. Just very gently stir that in until you've got it within range again, and turn that off and keep sitting there quietly. You don't need cold to the head. You don't need anything. This is a no stimulation treatment. It's good to have silence or calming music, something like that. You do a neutral bath for a minimum of 20 minutes. That's how long it takes to be able to get that effect on the body. But there is no maximum time for it. You could be in a neutral bath for hours if you want to be, no matter how much of a prune you want to turn into. But you just have to track the temperature of the water, okay? That's the important thing. And then secondly, when you get out, you don't want to then grab your towel and start rubbing yourself dry, because again, that's stimulating. So you're simply going to just pat dry. Some people will have terry robes, and they'll just get out, put their robe on, and naturally drip dry. So that too is no stimulation. And like I said, if you're doing it for insomnia, do that, get out and go right to bed. But it's not such a chill pill that if you do it in the morning or the middle of the day, that it's just going to knock you out for the rest of the day. It doesn't do that. So if you're doing it for other things like anxiety or something, you can do that at a neutral bath at any time of the day, and it will help with calming you down. So take your chill pill whenever you need it. All right? Yes. Can you put an essential oil that would calm you down as well? Yes, you can put something that would be calming like lavender, but or rose. Yes, you just don't want any. You don't want it too stimulating though. No peppermint. That's invigorating. So yeah, it has to be something calm and not a lot of it, so that it's not real strong. All right, steam inhalation. So this is a very simple treatment as well that you can use for sinus congestion, for allergies, for any of those kinds of things. You are simply going to heat up some water in a pan, and once it's boiled, you can put it on a table and then get a towel, and you're going to then cover that pan and sit down, and you cover your head with it. You're creating like a tent over you to hold in that steam. You know, obviously where it's not so steamy and hot that it's going to burn your lungs by breathing that steam in, but a comfortable temperature steam, that helps with moistening up, say if you have congestion. Then it's going to get those water molecules down in there in your lungs and help loosen up that congestion by moistening it up, and you can get it more easily out, cough it up and get it out. It helps with like allergies, I said as well, and congestion from sickness. It helps with sinus as well, not just the lungs. But I do say keep some Kleenex on hand, because you can start having to need to blow your nose and things during this treatment. You're going to be breathing in that steam 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long it's staying hot enough for one thing and feeling good to you. You can also add some eucalyptus essential oil into the water, because eucalyptus is very good for anything respiratory. And so that's excellent to do. Or if you have a eucalyptus tree, you can throw some eucalyptus leaves in that water as well and get that in there. You can even throw some fresh onion, chopped onion in there to also get those compound properties into it. So you can do just the steam, or you can add some stuff to it. You can add ginger to it, various things like that. Another way of doing it is if someone is a bedridden individual and they can't sit at a table and lean over it like that to breathe it in. What you can do is you heat up your water, they're laying in bed, you put the hot water on a table right next to their bed, as close to their head as possible, and you're going to open up an umbrella and put that behind them, and then put a sheet over that, and you're creating like a little tent over their upper body part, over their head, where they're just breathing in that steam as they lay there, okay? And you want to be mindful of, if they're going to be staying in that bed after this treatment, you don't want to be steaming up their bed, right? So take some precautions to maybe lay some plastic underneath them, under their pillow, some plastic around the top of the top sheets over them, so that when this treatment is done, you can just then remove the plastic and their bedding is dry, okay? So that they're not then laying in damp bedding afterwards. And so just be mindful of that. And you simply, when you're finished, have a washcloth on hand, a wet washcloth, and just wipe the face dry, okay? And that is your steam inhalation. Super easy to do. Some people just do it by having the pot on the stove, and they just stand there at the stove and breathe it in. I have found that yes, that can work, but if you're sick, you tend to be weaker and more tired, and it's very tiring to just have to stand there over the stove, and it's a lot easier to be able to do it sitting at the table. And you also, if you're at the stove, have to be mindful of not burning yourself on the burner as well. So it's a safer thing to do just on a tabletop. And if you find out that you've done it and it just seems to cool too quickly, then you can have some extra water boiling on the stove and just add it to it if you want to keep going longer with it, okay? Seemed like there was one other thing I was going to say, but let's go on. Contrast fomentations. All right, So this is an excellent treatment to do for all kinds of things. This picture is showing how it's done the full-blown version way for a respiratory condition. Pneumonia, bronchitis, COVID, any of these things. This is a way that you can very effectively give someone a treatment for any of those. And it is going to take quite a bit of towels, but this is a treatment that can save lives. And doctors that know about it, a few of them are actually doing these treatments on their patients in the hospital that have COVID. Wish that was all across the nation, but unfortunately it's not. It's just a few places. So I'm trying to give myself a little space here. So we're going to talk about what a fomentation is and how to prepare it, and then I'll tell you how to use it in your treatment. So fomentation pad is simply, we call them foamies for short. It's simply a thick pad. And that's because you're going to get it wet and hot. So you want something thick that's going to hold enough water so that it will stay hot long enough while you're doing the treatment, okay? So this is a fomentation pad that has been falling apart in the washing machine. So I kept it instead of fixing it, and to show you how it's just got a number of layers, and this one has several more layers inside of it. I counted all of them. There are 7 layers inside and the 2 outside layers. And this is like a real thick cotton, flannel cotton type of material. And so it's 9 layers that have been sewn together with a heavy duty sewing machine. So you can make these yourselves at home if you have that talent. And how it looks without being all ripped up is this is a regular size fomentation pad that you can use across the chest, you can use it on the abdomen, you can use it across the hips, you can use it along the back, you can use it along the leg, a lot of different places, but you can get them in different sizes. This one was actually made by a lady named Valerie in Tennessee, and her name and number is on your handouts down there at the bottom left-hand corner, I believe. So if you're interested, you don't want to make any, you would like to buy some fomentation pads, just call her up, tell her how many and what size you want. She'll ship them to you and then you mail a check to her. We got ours a few years ago from her, so I don't know if prices have changed since, but I think this size was like $30 for one of these. And I believe her material is like 50 cotton, 50 wool. So half and half. That is a very good material to use for these as well, and she makes them very well. But what you're going to do, if you don't have one of these, you don't want to order them, and you don't want to make them, you can simply just use a towel, okay? So if you're needing a large area, you can use a bath towel. This is folded in thirds. You can see how that's a little bit larger than the fomentation pad, but you know, that's a fair size to use. If you're needing to do, say, just over a knee, you can simply just use a hand towel and you're going to get that wet and hot. So whatever you're using, what you're going to do is, there's several different ways to heat it up at home. So you get your fomentation pad or your towel wet. I do both sides, and then you're going to roll it up. Not real tight, because it needs to get heat in the center there as well. But you roll it up, and then once you have it wet and rolled up, you're either going to heat it by using a microwave. You put it into a plastic bag, tie it up, and put it in the microwave on high. This size would be 5 minutes. If it's a bath towel, that's a little bigger and thicker. That might be 7 minutes. The reason for the bag is to equalize the heat. You can do it without the bag and it'll still get hot, but some areas will be hotter than others. And so if you have it in the bag, it does not melt. Trust me, we've done it probably hundreds of times. We've never had a bag melt. That just evenly distributes the heat so that your fomentation is nice, heated even. So you do that either in the microwave, and when you take that hot one out, you put the next one in and get it heated while you're using this one, and you just keep exchanging them like that. If you don't have a microwave, then you can use a canning kettle or a tamale steamer, some sort of big pot where you can steam them. You get water in the bottom. You have the fomentation setting above the water line, not down in the water. It's above the water. If you need to put big rocks in the bottom of the pot, you can to hold it up. And you put the lid on it, steam it for 30 minutes, and then they're all hot and ready to use and to grab as you need. You can wrap it, or you can wrap it in foil, each one individually, put them in the oven on a cookie sheet, and all of them lined up, and have them in there on 425 for half an hour. This is all in your handouts. And then that's ready to grab as you need. You just take the foil off and use it. Or the other way to use it is to boil a big pot of water. And this is if you're using the towel method. You boil a large pot of water and you roll up that towel. You grab the ends and you bend it and you dip that middle part, without getting the water up to your hands, of course, into the boiling water, and you squeeze the excess out. And now that whole center part is steaming hot. And what I do is I fold the ends over, and then there's my hot fomentation right there. Okay? Does that make sense for everyone? The microwave, the big pots for steaming, the oven, foil wrapped in the oven, or the towel dipped in boiling water.
I noticed microwave food cools a lot faster than when you cook food on the stove. So by heating the towel up in the microwave, does it cool down faster than the other methods?
A little bit, but it stays hot long enough because you're only doing hot for 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's enough. And what can be, if you are thinking that it's not enough, is that you might not have gotten your fomentation wet enough. Because if it's not wet enough, it's not going to get hot enough. But you don't want it dripping wet either. So that's why you just wring out any excess, and then you know you've got it wet enough. Here and then. No, you're not taking the temperature of it. Is that when you're doing the treatment, if the client is not doesn't feel like it's getting hot for them, then you know, okay, that wasn't enough. I need to do it differently to heat it up. Yeah.
Won't the plastic bags melt in the microwave?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't melt in the microwave. No. We've done it many, many, many times because right now our fomentation tank is needing a new part. And we've been out of it for the last few months, actually. And so all we have had is the microwave method. And we just put them in a big black trash bag and stick them in the microwave, twist it up, you know, to kind of seal it, and stick it in the microwave, one fomentation at a time. You don't stick all 3 or 4 or 5 in there at once. It's just one. And we do them for 5 minutes.
So it's not like a grocery plastic bag?
You can use that too.
And it doesn't fall apart?
Nope.
No? Really?
Yeah, just make sure it doesn't have any holes in it. You're wanting it to contain the heat inside. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to do it. Because you are applying this treatment directly on the skin. So the area that you're applying the fomentation is undressed, okay? So for this kind of treatment, you can see they're only in shorts because they've got their feet in hot water. They're laying on a hot fomentation on the back while hot and cold is being applied to the chest, okay? And then that creates a full body heat treatment. You pull up a sheet and a blanket over them, and that's a full body heat treatment, and so you're keeping cold compresses to the head. It can be over the forehead, over the neck. If you get over the carotids, then that cools the blood that's going to the brain. And you can get cold to the back of their neck as well if they're complaining of nausea because they're getting too hot. That will help in reducing nausea, to put cold to the back of the neck. So over the eyes feels good as well. So you've got a basin of ice water. You've got your hot foot bath there at the end, and your pitcher of hot water that you boiled to keep that hot foot bath hot. And you have got fomentations to the back and the chest. Now, like I said, this is for respiratory treatment, full blown. So this is the most complicated form of it. Now you can do this same treatment without the hot foot bath. Simplifies it a little bit, but it'll be more intense if you do it with it. You can do this treatment without the hot foot bath and without the hot fomentation to the back, and you just simply do hot and cold to the chest, okay? So I'm not saying that this is the only way to do this treatment, okay? Does everyone understand that? And like if you're doing contrast fomentations to the back for back pain, then it's just hot and cold to the back. If you're doing it over the glutes for hip pain, it's just contrast over the glutes. If you're doing it to the knees, then it's just doing contrast to the knees, okay? I just wanted to make sure you're all clear with that. But for this, say we're doing this treatment for someone that has COVID, and we're going to have them laying on a hot fomentation to their back while we do 5 cycles of hot and cold to the chest. So how many fomentation pads are we going to be using?
6. Oh, wait.
We're going to be using 6, right? 1 to the back, 5 to the chest. So that tells you beforehand how many you're going to need to be preparing, okay? Getting ready, if you're doing, you know, the canner method or the oven method. If you're doing the microwave method, then you need to have at least 2 or 3 that you can just be rotating, because you never reuse a fomentation pad once you've used it on someone, because even though it still feels hot, it's lost a lot of heat, and it either needs to be reheated in the microwave or you need to be getting a fresh one out of the big pot or the oven or something like that, okay? So once you've used it on them, you don't reuse it again, all right? So we're going to say that Susie Q, I always use the name Susie Q, my apologies if someone here is named Susie Q. We're going to be giving Susie Q some contrast to her chest, and this is a little messy up here because I can't clear the table, but what you're going to do is once you have a hot fomentation, you are always going to, once it's hot, you're always going to have oven mitts or some kind of protection on your hands, because otherwise that will instantly burn you. That's steam. That is hot. And if you're doing the microwave, you pull that out of the microwave, you open that bag up, don't look in there to see if it's hot or not, because that steam is going to burst your face. Same with if you unwrap the foil from taking it out of the oven. You just always be mindful of not burning yourself as you're giving this treatment, okay? So I'm not going to have this on there, I can work more quickly without it. But what you want to do, whether it's a pad or a towel, whatever you got wet and hot is your fomentation. You want to wrap it up in something. So at New Start we have these pieces of a wool blanket that were cut out and to fit a fomentation pad, and we wrap that in it. If you don't have such a blanket that you're willing to sacrifice that kind of cause, then you can just simply use a bath towel and wrap your hot fomentation in a bath towel, okay? But the point is, you're going to wrap it up, work quickly with it so that you keep the heat as long as possible. You get it nicely wrapped up. And this is the side with 1 layer. That's the side that's going to go toward the skin. It's not going to go on the skin, because if you stick that on someone's skin, you're going to instantly burn them. What we're going to do is, I'm just going to demonstrate if we were doing it over the chest. So you're going to, Susie Q is laying down, she's got some blankets pulled over her, her bed covers. So we're going to take a towel that has 3 layers, folded in thirds, and we're going to put that over the blankets, and then we're going to pull the blanket and sheet down. There's a thing about when you're working across a lady's chest, or if you're working across anyone's hips, you're always going to maintain their privacy, okay? You're never going to just flip things back and expose them. All right, so you cover her up, you pull that down underneath, and then this towel is now directly on her skin, okay? So then you take your fresh hot fomentation that you just rolled up, wrapped up, and you put that over that towel. And then I like to also put another towel over it to keep more heat. Yeah, stays warm longer. So you've got that going, you get your timer going, and you're asking every 30 to 60 seconds, how's the heat doing? Because I always tell my clients, no burning allowed. We're not looking for a burning hot, We're looking for a comfortable hot. Okay, so it should feel hot, but where they can tolerate it. And if it starts feeling like it's burning, like, oh, that's getting too hot, then you immediately lift it up, and you have a stack of hand towels next to you, and you just put down one more layer, and then you put that back on them, okay? And you keep maintaining, how's the heat doing, and so forth. Now, if you have to leave and go get the next fomentation before you do the cold cycle, because you always want that right there ready next to you, so that after you do the cold, you've immediately got the hot to put right on them, okay? Quick changes. Quick hot and quick cold is what you're aiming for. If you need to leave them to go into the kitchen to get the next one, then make sure the heat's doing okay. Let them know you're leaving, and that if it gets too hot while you're gone, they can either lift it off of them, or they can even, I tell them, you can throw it on the floor if you need to. No burning allowed, all right? It gives them control over it. Because if you don't communicate that with them, they think, oh, this must all be part of the treatment, and they just lay there and burn. We've had clients do that because they thought that that was, what they had to do, and the therapist wasn't checking to see if it was okay. So always, 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 your point is to never injure someone by a treatment that you're giving them. I did see a hand. Did I? No. Okay. So you go get the next one, have it ready there to go before you do the cold. One handy thing you can do so that you don't have to run back and forth between the kitchen and the couch or the bedroom is to get an insulated bag. This is for hot foods. It has to be for hot foods, because if it's something that's just for cold, then it doesn't keep the fomentations hot, okay? So like those black and red Trader Joe's bags don't work. They're insulated for cold, but not for hot. So you gotta have the silver lining in there, and you can wrap up all your foamies in the wool or the towel and have them in this bag and have that right next to the couch or the bed, and that way you never have to leave the person as you're treating them, okay? And that's just a nice option to have for that. So what you're going to do is, okay, you've got your next fomentation, now it's time for cold, and you have, oh, I'm going to need this hand towel here. You've got your basin of ice water with a hand towel in there, okay? So you're going to take off this towel, you're going to remove that hot fomentation, you're not going to use it again, you're going to have the fresh hot one. You get your hand towel, wring it out. Now because we're doing it across a female's chest and you don't want to expose them, you're going to grab the corners of the cold towel and grab the corners of the towel that's on them and drape it across. And that way they're always kept covered. And you let them know the cold is coming and take a deep breath, okay? Don't just slap cold on someone. Not nice. Let them know it's coming. And, she's face up, so obviously she can see it's coming. But if they're face down and you just take away the hot and the towel, and then they're laying there and wondering, when's the cold? And then you suddenly slap it on them, they remember that. And they don't appreciate it. And they don't tend to appreciate the treatment as much either. So let them know. And you're going to do 30 seconds of friction over the area, and it's good to get the hot and the cold along the sides as well, because that will also stimulate the lungs. So you're doing the 30 seconds of friction. It's nice to count out loud for them. They like knowing how long they have, and just keep reminding them to breathe, because they tend to stop. Okay? And then when you're done with that 30 seconds, again, you grab the corners of the towel, drape that across, put that back in your ice water, grab your next hot fomentation, put it on, and you just keep repeating the same thing every cycle. So we're doing it for the 5 cycles, and let's say we had our last, we've just finished our last cold friction. This is the 5th one, we're done. So we grab another hand towel. My face is getting into the burner there. Where did I put that? There it is. Whenever you have finished with cold friction on an area, you then want to dry it. So you take another dry hand towel and you're going to dry that area. Then you pull the bed covers back up over Susie. You pull that towel out and you help her to sit up because she had a hot one on her back. Anywhere that you applied hot, you're going to end with cold, okay? So then you do cold to the back for 30 seconds, you dry it, and you remove the hot fomentation. I like to have plastic underneath that as well to keep the bedding dry. So you remove the hot foamy, you remove the plastic. She lays back down on a dry bed, and then you're going to, if you did the hot foot bath, you're going to end with cold to the feet as well, and even the lower leg. So you can end with doing the cold like that with the towel to the body, or they can get up out of the bed and go do a cool down shower. Just get all the sweat off, close up all the pores, and then go get back in bed. Okay?
Are you doing the front, the chest, and the back at the same time, or so?
No. So if they have a hot foamy on the back, you're not doing contrast there. They're just laying on that hot the whole time while you're doing hot and cold to the chest. Yeah. Okay? So, I know that might sound a little intimidating. It took a lot for me to explain, right? But it actually is a fairly simple treatment to give because the cycles are all the same. It's more the preparation of getting your fomentations heated up, boiling your water, that kind of thing, and being that you're repeating the cycles that you do and washing a load of towels afterwards. So if someone is really sick with pneumonia, COVID, whatever, and it's pretty severe, you can do this up to 3 times a day. And even you don't have to do the whole thing, you can just do the hot and cold to the chest 3 times a day. And as they improve, you can go to twice a day, then once a day, then every other day until they're fully well. And you're gradually decreasing it. But this really increases the blood flow to the lungs, it increases the oxygenation of the blood, all kinds of things, and it loosens congestion and all those good things as well. Where did my clicker go when I shoved all that stuff over? Boy.
Something dropped by your foot there, is that?
Yeah, that's an essential oil. Got it. All right, thank you. All right, so cold mitten friction. This is very easy to do. It is simply having a basin of cold ice water and 2 mitts or 2 washcloths if you don't have mitts. These were just sewn out of old bath towels that were getting tears and stains and holes and things like that. So you salvage the good part and you sew it up into these mitts, and you can use that for cold mitten friction. Now this is the other way I mentioned of ending a full body heat treatment instead of a cool down shower. But it's not only used for that. This could be a treatment in and of its own. It's a cold treatment. So you can use it for someone with a fever, or someone that's overheated. You can use it for sedentary individuals to help stimulate their circulation and their blood flow. If they're bedridden and they don't move up much. The only thing you need to be mindful of is, since it's a cold treatment, you need to make sure that they're warm before you give the treatment, because you never give a cold treatment to a chilled person. Okay? So if they're ambulatory, they can get in a hot shower, and then you could do this. If they're bedridden, you can put hot water bottles or hot fomentations around them, warm them up first, and then give them this cold mitten friction treatment. Something like that, but just be mindful of it. Now this treatment, the success of it depends on the speed and the vigor of your friction, okay? So you need to make sure that it's nice and quick. So you soak your mittens in the ice water, wring it out, put that on your hands. I like to wear the disposable gloves under my hands because the person giving this does get very cold hands. Obviously, you can tell, right? So that helps insulate and protect the hands a little more from not getting so icy. And what you're going to do is you do quick friction, and when you're doing it on the extremities, you start from the hand to the shoulder or the foot to the hip. So you're going up the extremities toward the heart. Exactly. You're wanting to go along the valves of the veins and not pushing against them. Okay? And so you're going to do a good quick friction. Let's say we started at the hand and we're working up to the shoulder, and then I go back to the hand and I go back up. And if they're hot, if they've done a full body heat treatment, then 2 times up an arm, and the insides of these is warmed up because of their hot skin. But it's still cold here, so I'll flip them around, and I'll do 2 more times. And then I plunge them into the ice water again, wring them out, and then I do the same thing to the next arm, and to the chest, and to the back. And you're just re-soaking and doing it for each body part until you've done the whole body. And that's all a cold mitten friction is. Very simple to do. It's also an exfoliation treatment because the roughness of the towel is exfoliating dead skin off. But it's very stimulating to the blood flow of the surface tissues, and is very good for some other things there on your handouts that you can see as well. And so that is just a very simple treatment to do. So this is an ending quote from Counsels on Health, page 169. The things of nature are God's blessings, provided to give health to body, mind, and soul. They are given to the well to keep them well, like we said, maintaining health, and to the sick to make them well. Connected with water treatment, that's hydrotherapy, they are more effective in restoring health than all the drug medication in the world. Wow. What a statement. I love that. As a hydrotherapist, I love that statement, right? And we see it all the time, and how that can help people. We used to have a hydrotherapist, a massage therapist that worked at New Start, and then she went over to the clinic on campus and was working there as a medical assistant. And she saw it all the time, how that, if people only knew about some hydrotherapy treatments that they could do at home, they wouldn't need these pain pills that they're asking for at the doctor's office. Just simple things that you can do. And they're provided. The things of nature. Isn't water part of nature? It's a big part of nature, what God has given to us to give health to not just body and mind, but also the soul. If you've got a healthy body, you've got a clearer mind, and you can have that clearer connection with God, can't you? Yes. All right, so a quick little quiz to see how well you were paying attention, right? Okay, so how long do you do hot? 3 to 5 minutes. Got it? Yes. How long do you do cold?
30 to 60 seconds.
30 to 60 seconds. More of you answered on that one. At least how many cycles?
3.
A minimum of 3. And a maximum of 6. But at least 3. Water is up to how many times more efficient at conducting temperature than just dry air?
27.
27. Good. Excellent. All right. Hydrotherapy promotes healing due to increased
Circulation.
blood circulation. Yes. Blank, blood circulation. And how many degrees of difference do you need between the hot and the cold? At least 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Yep. And last one, the things of nature connected with water treatment are more effective at restoring health than what? All the drug medication in the world. That's right. You passed. Good job, class.
Can you put back the quote again?
Put back the quotes. Yes.
Just that last quote. Thank you.
There you go. You're welcome. So, yes.
Can you quickly demonstrate the friction again?
Quickly demonstrate the friction again. So you've got your basin of ice water. You bring that out of each mitt or use washcloths, and you're just going to do a good quick friction. Yes. And so what it's like on the skin is like that. Because if you're just doing this, you're not going to accomplish much. I mean, the cold will do something, but it's that you need that speed and that friction to get a good reaction. All right, is there any other questions? I think one there and then there. Yes. Thermophore for a fomentation pad. Good question. Thermophore, for those of you that don't know it, that is an electrical heating pad, but it has a special cover over it that absorbs moisture from the atmosphere, and so it does turn it into more of a moist heat. So you can use that in place of a fomentation, yes, but it's not as moist, and so it's not as effective. Yeah. So what sometimes I will do, instead of doing the fomentation on the back, I'll have them lay on the thermophore while I do the contrast to the chest with the fomentations, something like that. But yeah, so thermophores are excellent. They are like a Cadillac style of heating pad, but they are well worth it because they are more effective, and notably so. I think I had one here and then there. The cold friction, is it awkward over a woman's chest? It depends. You're not going directly over the breast with your hands. You're doing the friction all around it. So in the center of the chest and around it and on the sides. Yes. So good question. To be mindful of that.
Do you have more handouts?
Yes, there are a number of handouts left up here. If you didn't get one, feel free to come and get another handout. And I also have 2 handouts left over from yesterday on the poultices. So if you didn't get one of those, feel free to, first come, first serve on that. And then there are more handouts for today up here as well. So are there any other questions? All right, so we're going to close with a word of prayer. And if you have questions that you want to ask personally, feel free to come up and ask, okay? Let's pray. Our precious Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you so much for this time that we have had to talk about the wonders of water and how we can use it in skillful ways externally on our bodies. And we thank you for how fearfully and wonderfully you have made us and that our bodies respond to these kinds of things. I just pray, Lord, that you will continue to be with each one here. Bless them, strengthen them, help them, use them to your honor and glory. And may we continue to seek you here together in this time that we have at this camp meeting. I pray that you would be honored and glorified in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.